Jeremiah 28:8. The prophets that have been before me and before thee of old, prophesied both against many countries, against great kingdoms, of war, of evil, and of pestilence. Right, shalom, double honors to the apostles of GMS, and honors to you brothers that be pushing this truth in sincerity. And it's just another video I'm going to try to push out there, pushing this, the destruction of the society, right? It's going to be focused on the thing that you have out here with ISIS and Russia and China and the impending World War III. This article is going to be from Before It Is News, right? Pause this madness. Right, let's pause this madness. Right, it's this is called the New World Economic Order before it, and it's from the site Before It Is News. Right, and excuse the saying trying to put these videos out there. It's been messing all day trying to get this video, but nevertheless, we'll get into it now. It reads: the geopolitical conflict with Russia, Ukraine, the EU, US, NATO, Great Britain, Syria, Iraq, Iran, China, and other nations is not necessarily about land or territory. It is about all-out struggle between two global economic systems: the US, Great Britain, EU, and NATO. And we know that NATO, the US, and Great Britain, right, and the EU, they're all in allegiance, they're in alliance with each other. That's all one. Force moving for their own agenda. And we know that as Esau within the scripture. We know that as the dragon, as the beast, right? We know them as Rome, right? Coming back in the reincarnation. It says, in other nations and alliances are built upon preserving and strengthening this transatlantic union and the dollar, de facto world currency. Russia, China, Iran, and the BRIC nations, right, are attempting to topple the dollar as the world currency and replace it with multiple competing currencies of the new world. Right, and all conflicts between Russia and Ukraine, Syria, China, Japan, Iraq, and even ISIS are largely driven by economic warfare for establishing of a new world currency and economic order. Now, the disclaimer out there, you gotta remember these people that put this out together, put this particular article together. They're in a they're in a worldly sense. They're in a worldly state of thinking. You don't see the spiritual aspects of these things coming together. And when you read the book of 2nd Ezra, the 15th chapter, it tells you he's going to return that spirit to the Carmanians. He's going to let them out. In fact, let me get that. It's going to be the book of 2nd Ezra. Right. 2nd Ezra, 15th chapter. And I'll start from the 28th verse. And it says, behold, a horrible vision, and the appearance thereof from the east, where the nations of the dragons of Arabia, right, shall come out with many chariots, right, and the multitude of them shall be carried away with the wind upon the earth, that all they which hear them may fear and tremble. Also the Carmanians, which is the Iranians, raging in the wrath, shall go forth as a wild boar, right, of the woods, and with great power shall come up and join battle with them, and shall waste a portion of the land of Assyria. Now Assyria there is symbolic, and that's talking about America. So that's how we know the Americans and the Russians are going to eventually come up against each other and have a war, right? So it's not about Esau setting up. Well, it is about Esau setting up his new world order, but that's not. We know that he ain't going to achieve that. What's going to be achieved is a new world order within Israel. In fact, if we go to the book of Daniel 2, alright, the book of Daniel 2, 44. Just lost fucking internet, man. Say it, man. Alright, this is going to be the book of Daniel 2 and 44. Once again, should work this time. It says, in the days of these kings shall the Most High of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. That's the kingdom of Israel. I don't know if you can see that. Right, so if I zoom in, you can see that, man. That kingdom is going to be the kingdom of heaven, set up by the way of the Most High, right? Establishing the Negroes, Hispanics, Native Americans, all of Israel dispersed throughout the four corners of the earth. Right, and if we get back into the article, right, it says, all the conflicts, even and ISIS are largely driven by economic warfare, right? Economic warfare to for the establishment of a new world currency. Now, when you get, like I was saying a little bit earlier on, when you getting into understanding the scriptures, and you know that someone's going to benefit from all of this discourse that happens within the earth, and when you work up the tree of the finance and the benefiting, you find out it's the so-called elite banking families, to where you had an article published called All Wars are Bankers' War. That includes the world, First World War, Second World War, and the impending Third World War. And you're gonna see an article here by, which was a letter written by, the Freemason, the 33rd degree Freemason Albert Pike, where he basically, formulated how they were gonna come out and take over, all the world's resources and establish that, that new world order, right? But the point I was making here, the economic warfare, right, in terms of establishing that new world currency, which is going to be, using the chip, as well as the bio nuclear warfare, right? That's all to further the elite's agendas, right? It says, a new world economic order. This struggle is being played out with Russia and Ukraine, Syria, Iraq rather more, plus China's intents on dominating Japan and the Pacific region. Right, could easily lead to a regional thermonuclear war. Right, and that's what you don't get from these other prophets. They won't read these articles that talk about war. And thermonuclear war means a large amount of people will be destroyed. Notwithstanding the nuclear shock, what's the word I'm looking for? Nuclear aftermath, for lack of a better word. It says, and it escalate to a global thermonuclear war with countless millions, and really it's going to be in the billions, right? It'll be a couple of billion going to drop dead, man. Right, even this Ebola thing is taking out 4,000 people in a little amount of space, and that's just a virus. Imagine what the nuclear wars are gonna do, man. You gotta remember, transportation routes for transporting food, water, and resources is gonna be cut off when the nuclear wars hit. So life pretty much stops when nuclear, when war comes. Let alone nuclear war. We've never had a nuclear war upon the face of the earth. So this is going to be a beautiful time where the Most High is going to show His great, the magnitude of His power and His ferocity and His wrath, right? And He's going to, nice really against the Edomites, man, because the main people that's going to be wiped off the face of the earth and the power is going to be turned upon is the Edomites. Now we can see that in the book of Malachi, the first chapter. Alright, this is Malachi 1. Right, it says the burden of the word of the Lord of Israel by Malachi. He says, I have loved you, O Lord, I have loved you, saith the Lord. Yet ye say, wherein hast thou loved us? Was not Esau Jacob's brother, saith the Lord? Yet I have loved Jacob. So the Most High loves the Negroes, Hispanics, Native Americans, which are the Jacobites, Israelites in other words. It says, I have hated Edom, rather more Esau, and laid his mountains and his heritage waste for the dragons of the wilderness. Right, now one has to think them dragons, and when we just read the book of 2nd Ezra, the 15th chapter, and around about the 28th verse, it says talks about the dragons of Arabia. One must think that might be synonymous, but I'm not out here to seek out deeper revelations and all of that. That's what the elders do, and bring it down to the younger brothers. I'm merely here, showing you the articles and putting the precepts that I've learned. Right, under the men of GMS and under the elders at GMS, right? And it says, whereas Edom saith, we are impoverished, but we will return and build the desolate places. Thus saith Yahweh, the Lord of hosts, rather more, they shall build, but I will throw down. So you're going to try to establish this new world order, but the Most High is going to throw it down, right? Notwithstanding your kingdoms and your societies that you try to build up. It says, And they shall call them the border of wickedness, the people against whom the Lord's have indignation forever. Right? And let's go back to the article. And I got quite a bit of articles here set up. Right? But once we get vast majority of the meat out of this one, I'll jump to the next one. It says in this scenario, organizations like ISIS and Islamic State could detonate nukes, right, which is short for nuclear weapon. You should know that by now. It says, or unleash biological warfare inside of the US. Now, I believe it's in the next article. It might not be in there, but I certainly stumbled upon it, wherewith you might have some kind of attack by way of ISIS. I believe it was in the newspapers where the leader of ISIS said he will see, he was talking to the Americans, said he will see them in New York. So I wouldn't be surprised if something pops off in New York, and that's going to unleash the mark of the beast, the RFID chip, as a means of monitoring the people and controlling the people, and really just getting back to, because this all goes back to the birthright between Esau and Jacob. By getting back to that birthright, that's what they want to regain, man. Right? They want to regain, complete rulership over the earth. Right? It says, however, ISIS, the Islamic State of, Islamic State for Iraq and Greater Syria, is now operating in Juarez, Mexico. Agents for the Homeland so they're in Mexico right now, man. So like I was saying, that point I put out, I mentioned, quite a second ago, right? Could be facilitated by their Mexican base, right? It says, in Justice Defense Department have warned a threat of an imminent terrorist attack on the southern border of the U.S. Right? Intelligence officials have picked up chatter about terrorist group planning to carry out an attack on the borders, and suspect that ISIS and other groups are already inside the U.S. Now, if you know how this group is funded, namely ISIS, and by way of this article as well, and by just how Esau conducts himself, right? We know that ISIS is set up, man. Right? That's a whole setup, man. That thing, stinks of CIA involvement, right? And I'll go to one proof of that in just one moment. Now this is an interesting article and an interesting letter supposedly written by Albert Pike, although there's some controversy as to the validity of this particular article. However, you will see the validity of this article, going towards the becoming once the Third World War, because they say he basically wrote this letter in terms of orchestrating how free wars were going to come to pass, free world wars were going to come to pass, and that's how they was going to take over the known world, right? To take rulership of the world, have everyone under subjection, right? So it says I said 3 world wars. That's the title of the article right at the top of the page. You can't see it. Right, it's going to be up here, right? But it says Albert Pike and 3 wars. It says it's continued from part 1, but I'm gonna read this part. It says Albert Pike received a vision which he described in a letter he wrote to Mazzini, dated August 15, 1871. So this is quite a long time ago, over 150 years ago, right? But nevertheless, these Edomites stick to their principles and their gut, is to try to take over the world and destroy, something like 6.5 billion people. It says the letter graphically outlined plans for 3 world wars that were seen as necessary to bring about the one world order. Right? It says we can marvel at how accurately it's been predicted events, how accurately it has predicted events that have already taken place. Now, one has to question themselves. This is a vision, right? And he's wrote it down in the letter. And he's saying he accurately predicts certain things. No, this man was orchestrating it. You got to remember these elite, right? Have masses of resources, something in the trillions, right? They have paid for both sides of world wars in the past, right? It says Pike's letter to Mazzini. It it is a commonly believed fallacy that for a short time Pike's to Mazzini was on the display. That's all relevant. I'm gonna go jump straight to the point, right? Because that's talking about the letter being shown here and there. But this is what was contained in the letter. It says the following are apparently extracts of the letter showing 3 world wars, right? Have been planned for many generations. So it's saying this is what's going to happen, and it was planned for many generations ago. It says the First World War must be brought about in order to permit the Illuminati to overthrow the powers of the Tsars in Russia, and of the making of the fortress of the atheist communism. Right, it says, and divergence caused by the agenters, I believe the word there, but rather more agents of the Illuminati between the British and Germanic empires will be used to foment this war. Right, and Germany and England were the 2 principal players within in the First World War and Second World War. Right, so like it says here, the agents for the Illuminati, right, in the British government and the Germanic Empire, will be used to foment this war. So same thing that they've done back in the day in terms of setting up people to be in government and being in government and basically lead the people into a war that they don't want to go to. This is age old, right? It says at the end of the war, communism will be built and used in order to destroy other governments and in order to weaken the religions, right? Because back in the day, people used to fight for their religion, right? They used to fight for what they believed in. You got a lot of films, about that, right? Minds used to go to war for their faiths, right? And it says, I'm gonna go jump to the Second World War. It says, the Second World War must be fomented by taking advantage of differences between the fascists and political Zionists. Right, the war must be brought about so that Nazism is destroyed and political Zionism be strong enough to institute a sovereign state of Israel and Palestine. During the Second World War, right, international communism must become strong enough in order to balance Christendom, and it says which would be restrained and held in check until the time we need it for the final social catalysm, right? And it reads goes on to describe what's happening. In fact, I'll read it. It says after the Second World War, communism was made strong enough. It basically reiterating what's been done, reiterating the accuracy of the article. I'm gonna leave the article in the description box, and you can read it for yourself. Right now, this is the Third World War. This is the bit that's important. Right, it says the Third World War. Right, the Third World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences caused by the agenda of the Illuminati between the Zionist leaders and the Islamic world. Right, and that's what you have right now. You got differences between Israel and them, Iran, Israel and Iran, going at it. Israel and pretty much all of the people that are in the Middle East, right, are going up against some of them so-called Jews. And we know through Revelation 2:9, 3:9, and really pretty much all the scriptures, they don't fit the cut, man. They're not the real Jews, man. They're not the real people of the Most High. The real people of the Most High went into captivity by way of slave ships, and that's prophesied in Deuteronomy 28:68 chapter, man. Right, and you go through all the prophecies, they fit Israel, and they fit the Negroes, Hispanics, Native Americans, not Netanyahu and these people. They're not the real Jews. Right, it says the war must be conducted in such a way that Islam, or Muslim Arabic world, and political Zionists, the state of Israel, mutually destroy each other. So that was all. I mean, hey man, the way Israel was was instituted as a country, and you see in this, and you see in how ISIS has been instituted and all of that, and it's like the new boogeyman, all of that. People are starting to see that this is all a setup, man. Right? It says, meanwhile, the other nations, once more divided on this issue, will be restrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, and spiritual economic exhaustion. We shall unleash the the nihilists and atheists, and we shall provoke a formidable social catalyst which in all its horror will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism, origins of savagery, and of the most bloody turmoil. And that's exactly what the Bible prophesies was going to happen, man. It's going to be a bloody turmoil, man. But it's not going to be the reasons, what these elites have conjured. It's going to be by the unrighteousness that's going on in this kingdom, man. Right? It says, then everywhere, right, the citizens are obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries will exterminate those destroyers of civilization, and the multitude delusioned with Christianity, whose dietic spirit will from the moment be without compass or direction, anxious for an ideal, but without knowing where to render its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of a pure doctrine of Lucifer. Right? So people say, oh, it's New World Order, new financial system. No, that's not the point, man. They're trying to set up Satan, right, Lucifer, right, as the god of the earth, man, because that's who they worship. They're the spiritual counterparts of Lucifer, man. We're the spiritual counterparts. We're spiritually inclined to follow the Most High. They're spiritually inclined to follow the devil, man. Right? These Edomites, right? It says, and you read that in the book of Proverbs. Let me see if I can get it up. Scripture's slipping me right now. It's the book of Proverbs 16:4. It says, the Lord hath made all things for himself, even the wicked for the day of evil. Right? I'm gonna carry on with the article. Right? And it says, where am I? I'll read it. It says, will receive true light through the universal manifestation of a pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out in the public view. So that's what they call it, Illuminati, man, because they deal in the dark and all of that, man. But they're gonna publicly bring it to light, and then when they see the Queen and they see the presidents, and they see Obama and all of these different political leaders are really subjects under Satan. The people are gonna be inclined to do that, man, right? But we know that ain't gonna happen, man. The Most High is gonna have it to where just when he's at the precipice of sorting out his new so-called new world order, that's when he's gonna step in and destroy them. It says this manifestation will result in the general reactionary movement which will follow the destruction of the Christianity and atheism. And when we say Christianity is that it was just one of those tools that Esau has used, man. We know that the Most High doesn't deal with religion. He deals with laws, statutes, commandments, orders, and honor, right? A lot of people believe in the scriptures and call themselves Israelites and all of that, but they ain't honorable men, man. That's why you got dudes sleeping with brothers, women. So we got dudes basically saying house doesn't exist, man, because they're without honor. And honor's about name, man, right? Going back to the name of the Lord, which is Yahushua, and the name of in fact, we can go, we say the name of Israel, right? In fact, we could bring it down to the name of your father. You dishonor him when you say your house doesn't exist, man. You dishonor him when you go doing all kind of wickedness, man, right? And I'm not talking about your earthly father. I'm talking about Judah, Benjamin, Levi, right? Your Yahweh, your Banyaman, and all of that. All of the our actual forefathers, man. Your actual surname, man, and it goes back to Israel, right? That's why the Lord said it in Ezekiel the 37th chapter. I don't do this for your sake. I do it for my name's sake, man. Which goes to show you gotta have the name, man. You gotta have the name, because it's all about the name, man. It's all about honor, and honor goes right up to the name, man. Right? It says this manifestation will result from a general reactionary movement which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time. Right, and I'm gonna jump to the next next article, right? Because that's this all for it to be a world war, all of these people could be joined up against one another. Now, this is an important article because it it shows you the link that Russia and China have, right? And we know through the scriptures, in fact, let's bring it up. God and Magog. Man, this precepts is slipping me. Oh, yeah, of course. Oh, man. Right, this is going to be Ezekiel 38th chapter, on the 2nd verse. It says, Son of man, set thy face against Gog and Magog, the land of against Gog and the land of Magog, right? And the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against them, right? And this is talking about them Russians. It says, and say, thus saith the Lord Yahweh, behold, I am against thee, O Gog, and the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and I'll turn thee back and put hooks in thy jaws, right? And I will bring thee forth, and all thine army, and horses and horsemen, and all them that are clothed with the sort of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling sword. Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya with them, right? All of them with shields and helmet, right? And that's talking about, that last World War. And it says Gomer, right? And all of his band, and the house of Togarmah, right? And the north quarters, and all of his band, right? With them. It says, be thou prepared, and prepare thyself and all thy company, right? This goes into this article. Prepare all thy company. That's Russia is Russia and China are company, man. China is Russia, is company to Russia, man. So they're preparing each other for this all-out chaos, man. And all thy company that are assembled unto thee, and thou be a guard unto them. Now that's important, man, because Russia is a guard unto the Persians, which is the Iranians, all those different countries, man. Right? And this is why it's taken a long time for these at least to do what they wanted to do with Syria, and they haven't really finished up with Syria, right? They haven't brought them down to their knees, right? All right, and it says it says after many days thou shalt be visited, and in the latter years thou shalt not come into the land, and that is brought back from the sword, and is gathered of many people against the mountains of Israel, which have always which have been always waste, but it is brought forth out of the nations, right, and shall dwell safely off all of them, right. But the point was reached, I read in the above precepts. Now let me go back to this this particular article, and we've read that and close that down. It says Russia and China are formidable combatants in the 21st century primary battlegrounds cyber warfare. It says troops will practice countering irregular units and high precision weapons, as well as conduct combat missions in conditions of active radio electromagnetic jamming and in intense enemy action in areas of troops deployments, according to Dmitry Andreyev, right, a major in the strategic rocket forces. And he says, but that's not but that isn't all, right? A Kremlin advisor added Russia is planning to on updating its military doctrine in this year in light of the Ukraine crisis and sour relationships with NATO, right? So that's the spirit of the Lord out there coming out there, putting these people coming up to battle up against each other, man. Right? It says Russia is already the world's third highest military spender behind the United States and China, right? And if two of the three big spenders are joining, in terms of military, are joining up together, that's for all that chaos, man. It says, and China, and they're clearly going to keep amping it up, right? But they won't be alone. As it's a paragraph in, it says, as has been the case for the last decade, Russia can look to China for support. Right? So the Russians look to China for support, and says the two nations' alliance is more powerful than before, than most are willing to acknowledge. consider their support for one another throughout the Ukraine crisis. And it goes on, right? It says, and I'm gonna jump to this first. That's not all. Russia and China cooperate along economic and technology, military and political lines. What's more, in all these areas, they have they have something the UK lacks: strategy, and will put it into practice, man. So that article goes to show you that Russia and China coming up together, and once Russia's involved, right, then you're gonna have the Middle Eastern countries involved, but they have allegiance with the Middle Eastern countries, and China's gonna get involved, and they got allegiance with the Libya and those other African countries that the scriptures prophesied of in the Ezekiel the 38th chapter, right? So it's all gonna be all out chaos, man, right? Let me jump to the last point I wanted to touch on, right? And the other brother, there's a brother, I think it's I can't remember his name. I don't want to. I'm not taking credit for finding this particular article out. Credit goes to the brother. I forgot his name. I forgot his name of his channel, but basically brought it out that ISIS is the same company. It's not. It alludes to the same company as this, and this is called Integrated System Improvement Service, right? And it's ISIS. It's an American company, right? And when you go to about ISIS, you find out, right? ISIS is headquartered outside Fort Hachua in Cesar Vista, Arizona. Our Washington, D.C. office is located in the Ronald Reagan building, right? And it goes on and so on and so forth, right? And they, if we go back to the home, let's see what they do, right? ISIS provide worldwide security, intelligence, technology, and training to government and private enterprises, right? So, man, this whole thing is a bit, it's a setup, man. It's a setup. And if you go to jump to their clients, like I said, the brothers already poured it out, but I thought it might be relevant to bring out in this particular video, right? But you go to their clients, you got America and so on and so forth, right? But also you got Iraq here, right? You got Iraq again, right? The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Iraq, all of that. Those are their clients, man. That's what they do. Right, so that's what this man is about. This man, I don't know if you saw that, but that's what this man is all about. Divide and conquer, man. He's all about destroying the world, man. That's why he's gonna be the people of whom the Most High has everlasting indignation against. But those really, the edification went out. Oh, double honors to the apostle of the GMS. Unless you brothers will be pushing this truth from sincerity, and as you can see, we're almost out of here, man. Right, time to be strong. Right, shalom.